To order. Public comment. I think this is you.
Or I was going to do, Bill come up during superintendent's
whatever.
report.
Oh,
but we're
but he-
rolling right into the next one unless there is public comment.
But then he can go back down to the basketball.
That's
He does
right.
public comment.
Well, yeah, it's true, because superintendent...
Well, I don't have a chair's report either, so.
Bill, come on up.
Just jump in.
there.
Otherwise, we're going to miss the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss the whole thing.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Really, it
Good to be
smells
back.
awfully
I've
good.
been out in the country the last two.
I know, it's so yummy.
You all have a copy of an extraction from TAP, the architect that did the school that also has volunteered services for this.
They volunteered? They donated it?
Yes,
Oh,
I
wow.
called them and it was very easy. I've had
Charlie
a
Day.
conversation.
Yeah, Charlie Day Cafe is just a terrific guy.
Yes, Charlie signed up right away, and Jen's been taking the lead on doing the project. I've been communicating with her. One thing I did promise them is that I would come back once with changes to what they did for recommendations. So I did send this to the full picture to both Loxley and John. I do need to reach out to John. I was going to do it yesterday and then said he may not be in the office.
Or today.
I will, true, so I will call him and make sure we have coordination of all input. There's really nothing major except for one issue that we need to, I think, talk through here. So if you look at the front page, you'll notice, when I came in, we had the teaching lesson, the message up high. The reason it's not there, and you can't really tell by this, because I stared at this drawing, I said, why did they do that? Why did they do that? When I flipped the next page, I realized they went with a hip roof. So they felt that, so the front, instead of being a gable, is now a hip. So this is shingle. This whole area is shingle, and it's slanted.
Yeah, mine is like that.
Right?
Okay.
So they, their feeling there is not that both work, and it's not like they said this wouldn't be acceptable. They felt that this was the better way of tying it in to the existing structure and the existing area. They had the perspective of not wanting it to stand out. Right? We maybe agree with that, or maybe want the teaching message to stand out. That's really what the one decision point here, because what it does is you're unable to put anything up on the roof because it's slanted. This is the fascia board, which is not even that wide, which is where you would put the A.J. Robbins Memorial. That's the fascia where the roof and the wall meet. There's not much room above the door either, because another thing they did, which I do agree with, is they went to 8-foot from 10-foot ceiling. It just tied in better that way, so I agreed with that. But it puts the teaching message over on the right. There's pluses and minuses, because when you're going in and out of the facility in this location, it's now at eye level. So kids will always be seeing it in and out, because you don't walk into a facility like this looking up. But from the distance, from the parking lot, or from step back from it, you were more apt to see it if we did a gable roof up front. So I guess I'm happy. That's really the only, I believe that's the only controversial thing. But the one other thing, and I'll get to that after, but I'd like to get feedback on that, because I can go either way with it, but how the school and how the school committee feels, it's just big enough change is important in the feedback I give to them.
Yeah, I have no problem with the change of location. In fact, I think it's a nice spot for it, because it's I love it.
It's island.
I don't know if Charlie, if you've spoken to Charlie or
I spoke to
Jan about the size of it. I mean, maybe enlarging the area of the sign itself.
They have no, it's not like they said this doesn't belong.
Right.
So that would be...
I'm just saying, if you're concerned about visibility.
I'm concerned about making school better, right? Because when I came in, yes, this is a memorial for AJ, and we also agreed it was a chance to bring community together to do something, and we also agreed that it's a teaching opportunity or a constant remembrance to people to maybe, pause. So, and I had presented it one way with the gable, and I think it was a big enough change where I want to make sure you're all comfortable with it, because otherwise I'll go back to them and say, we need to stay with the gable. And I understand, because the hip, given that the current structure is a hip roof, they thought just make it fit in and tie just totally into that, like it looks like it's one building that was built at the same time as much as possible. So that's what, but you can, I mean, you probably have seen many houses where you've had a gable that goes into a reverse angle of a gable. That's just like going into a hip. So it does make architectural sense. It's just this was their preference. And it was a surprise. I didn't know. That was my surprise finding when I opened the file.
What material is that sign going to be made out of?
This big one?
Yeah. I'm
That
just curious if, like,
probably
people
could
would
be
touch it
like
if
a
they-
vinyl with something on it, or wood with something. We could, that's like a final decision type of thing, like
Yeah.
picking out your countertops or something. But we could definitely,
It seems to me with something that's eye level like that, and, you know, colleges, universities, and other places have something that's momentous like that people actually touch the object as they go by. I don't know if that would be
Oh,
the
I see
case
what
with
you're saying.
something like that. Worried about wear on it, and if that would be.
yeah, I think there's enough materials now where if you think about it, you touch your house, right? And there's composites and
Right.
materials that are even stronger than that,
Yeah.
that you could put over the siding. Because they do recommend vinyl siding, which we had talked about before, to tie in. So I wouldn't be afraid of that in terms of getting it something that is lasting. And, I mean, everything normal at the time has normal wear and tear.
Right.
But remember, also the intent was to have yearly fundraisers and to try to create a fund that when the roof goes or when something else goes, that the money is there. But I think we would have no problem picking a proper material.
That was only
there.
my mild,
Yeah.
minor comment, but I have no problem
Yeah, no,
with
no.
it being in that
No,
location.
that's fair. I just, I do think for the going in and out and for the walking by, it's fine. You just don't get that into the parking lot or distance. And that's the
Right,
trick.
right.
I've had more time to digest it, right? Because my first reaction, my first reaction was, whoa, this is significant. Why didn't you call me or whatever? But as I've digested it, it doesn't strike me as a negative. I see there's just as many positives as negatives because of the in and outs and eye level versus the distance with parents and drop off and cars seeing it. Now, maybe the parents need to see it more than the kids, I don't know, so we can decide that. But this is recorded, I'm in trouble. Good thing I don't have a lot of friends.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, my only question is, as we get closer, and you know, like you said, this is like picking the countertops.
Yeah.
In terms of the size of the signs, will we be able to see a more the concrete example of the size of the two signs? So the one, the A.J. Robbins Memorial Field that's at the top, and then the Life Choices sign. I'm just curious in terms of their comparison to each other and how big that will be on the side of the building. I guess it would be hard to predict until you have it built, right?
Yeah. No, we
decide,
can-
or
I mean, these are extractions from their exact architecting, so it was very hard to, I can do something like I did in PowerPoint and show you kind of ratio-wise. I just want to figure out what size fascia, but if the fascia board, you may be talking, 10 inches at top at
Okay,
most.
yep.
And that's where the wording would go for the naming of the field house. And this, we really would have the flexibility to make this bigger than the area they show. Because this
Okay.
is drawn to scale.
okay.
So in terms of proportionate distance from door, distance from end, there's nothing stopping us from going a little longer and a little wider. That's really our call.
Okay.
This was just how they, how they threw it up. but
I will
it
say,
wasn't a big deal.
they obviously have been very helpful, and,
Mhm.
I trust that they would make decisions that would be aesthetically pleasing to the project and go along with the school. So I'm happy that they volunteered to work on this with you, so it's exciting.
Right. If it's not going to be big enough to really be visible from the parking lot from that kind of angle, there's no point in making it so big that when you're close up, it's too big.
True. You want
Right,
to make
it's a
sure it's
fine
something
balance,
that
yeah.
there's a balance, right? You want to make sure you're
Right.
reading it.
Yeah.
But it is, I didn't stop and think about the going in and out. You don't look up when you're going in and
True.
out, right?
Right.
So that was a benefit.
Which is one of the questions that I had in my head, which is, how does the traffic pattern come from the building to the field?
From the field, if you think of where the fence is now, so the fence will come out, It will come not through the gate area, because we don't want to cause hectic. It will come right out onto the sidewalk, and then there's that big gate entrance that was made for like the ambulances or whatever.
Yep.
And the little opening on the field. So if you were using that field, you'd go that way. We have to look, if those two fields, if you're going to use the turf field, you'd come out and go left to the stairs that are still there
Right.
and down. The one thing that I did notice, and maybe it could be easy to fix, or maybe it's already there, I never noticed that there's a gate from the 2 football fields to the grass ones, the new ones, to the soccer field. I don't know, I know there's a fence
It's-
behind there. I don't know if there's actually a gate to actually go into it.
There is.
There must be some way of getting
There
there,
is.
because they come from the locker room.
Yeah.
So that's how you'd get there from there.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions from the committee? Really appreciate all the work you put into this.
Not,
Just one other question that's not,
Go ahead.
doesn't have to do with the architecture piece. Fundraising, is that coming along?
I do want to give a few
Oh,
words.
awesome.
I did have some status to give. So 501c3, the actual establishment of the fund through Community Foundation of North Central Massachusetts, that was actually going, I was going to announce tonight that it was open, because it was supposed to happen yesterday, got canceled. So my wife's going tomorrow. The Robbins family has donated the first $3,000, and I wanted them to be the one that opened, so it's the AJ Memorial Foundation. That's going into there. There's been other people, individuals who have made donations, but now with the 501c3 open, and with a lot of the legwork, still have some to do of getting professional services and material, which is where I've really been concentrating to get people signed up. We have a group of people, and kids, by the way, I say kids, young adults, because they've graduated now from high school, but that are going to go out, and what I'm doing is putting together a packet to explain the whole thing. They'll have the thing about AJ, explain the project, what we're trying to achieve, and I'm going to have a training session. We're going to be going out to the Walmarts, to the Hannafords, and the grant writing portion needed a few things to finalize. One was we need the exact plans. So when I talked with John and we closed, we need to include the plans in it. And I also, both parents are working currently on impact statements about what this means to them doing this project in the community. They both have a sketch and it's just being tweaked a little. And I got to get those two things, and then the more formalized projection of funds to Katie, and she's going to put into like Myra Craft and some other grants that we think are appropriate for this. So the focus is switching, I don't want to say away from, because there's still work to do and always work to do to get services and material for free, but and more towards the fundraising. People will be actively going out in the community to all the places where they don't have something to offer for this project, so we'll be looking for financial. And so with that 501c3, now they have the formal, it's tax deductible. The foundation, I think it's over 25. There's an amount where over 2,500 or whatever, they actually do the whole, here you go for tax reporting paperwork. If it's lower than a certain amount, then there's a board that has to be associated with the foundation, would have to provide that for them. So that is how that is going. We have had a good coming together of local professionals. I do want to try to get some additional local framers involved. So hopefully framers listen to the broadcast here now. So that we do have a lot of people that have stepped up, and we do have carpenters that have stepped up for the finish work and whatever. We have people who are going to help for the framing. I really would like someone local to step up to own it, to have one person own the coordination of everyone. So that's one area where it's still a little looking going on. What else do I have here? I think that's everything. And I will report actual financial dollars to you as we go, and as money comes in, especially with large increases. I won't tell you every time we get a few $1,000s, but my objective, we don't need the $100 grand, right? Because we're getting a lot of the services free, but my objective, meaning today we don't need it. But my objective is to try to get to the $100 grand mark. And because this is also meant to be more. Eventually, I know the family wants to do a scholarship associated with something. You know, they need to think through that more. So we'll have the single foundation collecting all the funds instead of different. So I'm trying to set the $100,000 as the target, but the more realistic number that, you know, we'll probably need is going to range depending on final free gifts. Will probably range somewhere between 25 and 45, I think, depending on. And I know that's a little bit of a spread, but it depends on, is somebody going to give the concrete 100% free, or are they going to give it at cost or whatever. So there's still those fine negotiations that have to happen in those areas. I did want to point out one other thing, if I could, on the drawings too, is on it's the third page. I am going to recommend, because right now, you'll notice if you went through these, there is only the front door. And that's based on 49, no more than 49 occupants at any time. From some talking I've done with local people who know the rules and the regulations, I know that a sprinkler system is totally square foot dependent, and we're not even close to it. So I'm going to tell them we really should work to put a door back on this side. This is the side that faces the turf field. You remember before, I used to have a whole bank of windows in the door, and I like that they lowered the window count, put in 4. We can just shift them, but I'd like to put the door in because it's something that's so simple to do when you're building, and then after the fact, because I think the door and maybe an alarm, which is easy, not sprinklers, not whatever, are all that would stop you from getting maybe better utilization and not having coaches having to worry about head counts or 2 teams ending up in there at the same time, and you broke the rule of the 49 and whatever. So I think it's worth that. So that's probably the biggest comment that I have now that the roof issue seems to be okay with everyone. And then I'm going to listen to John Londa to see what inputs he may have from his experiences with school projects. Take his input, and we'll go back to them and get our final update. And that's the plan. What else can I do?
I have a suggestion as you're going
I
out.
hope it's better than my wife's.
As you go out to talk to people about the project, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. One of the things that I discovered when we were doing the school project is showing up with a picture of the school made a huge difference. And you might want to ask for one more favor from Taipei, and that is to give you a rendering of what the building will look like.
Okay. I will do that.
My
PowerPoint doesn't cut it.
I think that a rendering, you know, that shows what the finished building will, the concept of what the finished building will look like, will be a helpful marketing tool.
No, I agree. That's good.
Perhaps even on the cover of the packets that you're delivering.
Right. And I do, those packets are supposed to go with the groups that go out, because I want to make sure there's a consistent and correct message going out to whoever we're asking to give money. And I don't think that'll be an issue. Anything else?
Anything else, guys? Again, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the time, and excuse me for actually leaving, but I'm not
No,
happy.
we understand.
I might sleep.
Enjoy.
Okay, thank you.
I do not have a chair's report this evening. Warrants, we have the warrants on the table. We also have a couple of line item transfers.
We do. Mr. Londa has submitted a line item transfer in the amount of $494.56, and he's requesting moving that from the electricity line, which, as we know, has more than sufficient funds for the remaining of the year in it. But he's wanting to move it to the fuel oil line, and basically this is to put all of the generators in full capacity right now, to fill up all the generators after the last electrical downpowering that happened. This one needed filled up. I'm not sure that it came, it's sort of like a new car. I don't think it came with all 500 gallons in it. So now it's topped off, and also over at TCP, that generator is full over at Turkey Hill, and that, of course, is a generator that operates if we needed a shelter for the town, and down at the primary school. So all the generators now will be, with this move, filled to capacity, and we can pay that bill. So I recommend that approval. And then also, Ms. Champagne indicated that they are running low on paper and had requested a movement of some funds. After visiting with her about that, I determined that probably the amount that they need to get through the remainder of the year is $1,250. They went from being a middle school aligned to adding another primary school grade within there. And the paper consumption, I think, at the younger grades tends to be a little bit more than at the middle school and the higher grade levels. So this seems appropriate. It definitely is needed. They're basically almost out of paper at this point in time. So recommend moving that $1,250 into the general supply line. It's coming out of the reading supplies, and the reading supplies were actually appropriate for curriculum adoption fund purchase, so that's why they're available within this line at this point in time, because we purchased the reading texts that were in that line out of the curriculum adoption line. So recommend approval of that $1,250.
Any questions?
Thank you. Here, you want to put them both in that?
Sure. We have 3 sets of minutes.
Just two.
I'm
Just
sorry.
the executive.
That's right, we don't have the regular session. So we have the 2 executive sessions. Are there any corrections, additions, clarifications? Okay, you understand that we're going to approve these, but the release will happen later on.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Superintendent's report.
Yes, just wanted to indicate that I had a very productive and meeting with the Finance Committee in presenting the budget. They had some questions primarily around the health insurance line, which was a significant increase. They were happy to receive the news about the increasing enrollment, and there was a question from Mr. Erickson about the difference of what's adding to our Chapter 70 in terms of our increased growth, or that increase from the state as they begin to meet more of their obligation to Lunenburg around the Chapter 70 funding. And so I haven't had a chance to research Mr. Erickson's question yet. I was able to provide the information around what the budget increase in the health insurance line was related to what we had in one-time money payments last year, when that very substantial increase came in after we were already well down the road with our budget and needing to do some other high priority items last year. So we had some choice money that I refer to it as one-time money, because while we have a reoccurring flow of choice in, that was above and beyond that reoccurring flow. And then just the increase this year. So it was a very, I think, well-received presentation. Not too many questions, and folks seemed supportive and interested in what was going on in the schools. I also want to congratulate, all the winter sports teams for their season. Our basketball is wrapping up their annual banquet and awards assembly, and of course we ended the season with 2 very exciting games that the girls basketball, and they just did a great job representing our school. They were fun games to watch, and the athletes made us very proud in terms of how hard they worked on the court and how, particularly with the disappointing game at the state level, that state semifinal. But they, they were composed. They continued to work hard, and they congratulated their competitors when the final bells ended. And we were on the short end of that particular game, but it was great fun to be in the crowd, and so many of the parents and young students and so many of the high school students went. So it was, Lunenburg was well represented all the way around. So congratulations to the team. Mr. Mackin has extended an invitation for them to come join us on April 1st so we can acknowledge them, and we're waiting to hear back from the AD if that will work for a majority of them and their coaches. So we'll be back in school tomorrow, and I know Mr. Londa, who was behind a shovel and a snowplow all day today, or a snow blower, will be with several members of his crew up on the roof, making sure that we don't have a similar reoccurrence of what happened last time with the large amounts of snow when it melted sliding down. So he and the maintenance folks will be up there on both this wing as well as the middle school wing, taking some preventative actions for when it does warm up again, which I think is next week sometime. So really appreciate the work of the DPW as well as all our maintenance and custodial staff of getting things cleaned up. That was a lot of snow. Again, I think Lunenburg seemed to be in the jackpot range for this area. I saw over 16 inches, which was one of the higher amounts. Sure didn't seem like a lot more than that when I was shoveling it. Heavy. So it was heavy. It was very heavy, especially late last night. It was starting to get very difficult to move around. So many thanks to everyone, and we're looking forward to the students and the teachers being back tomorrow and getting going. Mr. Spadafino and the other administrators are looking at the calendar in terms of adjusting for this third quarter when we've had so many interruptions. So they will.
Okay.
He has some ideas. He wanted to talk,
Okay.
of course, to his leadership teams, and then that will be announced.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, we do not have a student rep report tonight.
Oh,
Well,
Mr. Boyd is in South
I was going to say, we could have had a remote participation.
They were with penguins today. Yes,
On our story.
2016 grad, Rachel Spatafor, is interning, or she's 2015, she's interning in South Africa.
Nice.
So they went, the family went,
Yeah.
and they
And a lot.
brought Ms. Burgoyne with them as well. And they were, she's doing an internship at some sort of, animal sanctuary
Cool.
type of facility. So there was a photo I saw of them just a few hours ago.
Nice.
I had no idea.
Okay, I do not have a school building report. There's no school building committee. There's been no activity. We had a brief conference call last Thursday just to go over some open items, minor open items, and so that's, as I said, there's nothing really to report. Under new business, we have a first reading of the policies, Athletic Advisory Council, 5607 draft, 3701.01 school lunch insufficient funds negative balance revision, 1202 facilities use policy revision. And then after that, we have approval of amendments of FLAC agreement. So let's start with the first reading of the policies. Are there any questions on the policies as they've been submitted for our reading?
I did have a question, the school lunch balance, just how they came to the figure of $12. when a student's lunch balance reaches a negative $12. It had been 10, and 12 is reasonable, but how did we come to that number? It's still less than a full week of lunches at the middle high school.
It is, it's 4. And 10, I'm not sure how they arrived at 10, actually, when it was set at $10, just simply because this is basically 4 days of school lunch for the younger students that would be, is where they would arrive, because it's $3 a day.
Right.
Right? Or is it $3.50?
It's $3 and $2.75 for our youngest.
The youngest ones, okay. So we split the difference, didn't we, with 3?
Yeah.
They could have.
What is it, 350?
Because that would have been 4 lunches then.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with the 4 days?
I'm fine with the 4 days. I was wondering how it came to be. I know my son has forgotten to turn in a check when I've given him, like, ooh, would that have been enough time for him to, be forgetful and me to get the notice and get back? So we'll just stay on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, we could put 2 different levels in there. I think that's, we were thinking 4 days, basically.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this, parents or guardians will be contacted by the school personnel, which is what we've automatically done. It's an automatic notification by the cafeteria manager. It's the email that goes out as someone who has forgotten to, put lunch money on the child's lunch account. And then you can just go online and fill it in, and then, you know what I mean, be back to your balance.
Yeah, you can pay it online.
Right. So
Instantaneous.
I think that sort of would answer your, like, oh, you forgot, and then I forgot, and whatever.
I don't
like
do
a
the
buffer.
online because there's a fee that goes with that.
All right.
Yep, $3.
Yeah.
Divided by 3.
It's 1 month. But we have $20,000 outstanding, correct?
Over $20,000.
So 4 days is enough.
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting that any more was
Yeah.
needed. I was just wondering how the figure came to be.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have
comments?
one on the priorities for use, the
Yep.
1202.
Sure.
So number 4 is Lunenburg Town-related and the Lunenburg Youth Sports Organization. How can 2 entities have the same priority level, and what happens if they both submit something?
We talked about this. Hold on. We did talk about this.
Didn't know how that worked.
Yeah, well, those, I've not known the town government to use the gym, which, or the athletic fields. So, did we talk about doing those as separate ones and putting the town government, Mrs. Soroka? Is that what we talked about? Did I just forget
No.
how that was supposed to be represented? The town government, town government related are usually our meeting rooms, the auditorium, those kinds of facilities.
Voting?
I'm sorry?
Voting?
Voting,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but we don't
do that
own-
at TCB.
Yeah, but TCP isn't a school
Right.
building anymore.
But we saw them as
Right.
comparable
Right.
kinds of activities in terms of being there for the local sports as well as our local government. And so that's how we rated them. I mean, you could suggest changes if you don't.
I didn't
We
know what
didn't
kind
see
of
it.
scenario that...
We didn't
that
see
there
an
was.
inherent conflict in terms of having them as the same priority rating. In a prior rendition of this, the rec department was listed there, because some of these programs used to operate under the rec department. I've never
Right.
known there to be a
Parks,
conflict. Now we've just clarified that because there's no rec department in town. None of these operate under the Parks
None, yeah.
Association. We clarified them as being Lunenburg Youth Sport Organizations. We tried to represent them that way.
So if there hasn't been a conflict in the past and we're not anticipating one in the future, then
Right.
it should be fine as it is. There were a couple of minor...
While we're there, I just had
clarifications.
one comment or
Sure.
question. Is it necessary that we specify in number 5, the Scouts? I can think of other youth-related nonprofit organizations in town Boys and Girls Club, for instance.
I think those were just examples. We can
Okay.
add to it if you'd
Yeah.
like, or
Yeah.
we just tried to put
For
an example. Yeah.
Okay. It looked like it was set out to be...
No.
Okay. We can clarify that.
We could add teen center there up above. It lists several things under Lunenburg School.
Yeah.
All of those lists are meant to be,
Examples.
examples,
Gotcha.
non-inclusive. We can take them out completely. Whatever your desire might be. on those.
Yeah, I think we know what the use related, I don't think you need to...
We don't have to have scouts in there at all.
Exactly.
We can just take that out.
Right.
School support groups, do we take out all of them?
We can,
All the
because Paxal,
examples?
we don't even have, right?
Yeah, Paxel
Really?
meets, Ms. Bertrand, I know I sent an email, they're meeting, I think, in the project room.
Paxal, that would be the first one.
Yeah.
Where was that
School
meet?
year.
Yeah, I'll look
Okay.
at it.
Yeah.
But because I was surprised too, but I do know that
Okay.
they were meeting in the project room, the middle school project room, so. I
Okay.
think it was during the day too.
Meredith, you had?
So we're taking out all the examples.
Yeah, because
of
that
the
would,
group.
that was the advisory groups too, right? That, we don't get that.
So I think the only thing we will need to do is to provide Mr. Londa, as he is looking
Right,
through
just-
these, a more comprehensive list, so that if there is anything that conflicts,
Questionable.
so that
Let
he's
you know.
clear,
Right.
if
Of
he
which
were looking
category
at
they're
multiple
falling under.
Yeah.
requests,
Superintendent.
what, who is considered, for example, someone could consider the Boys and Girls Club number 3, depending on, you know what I mean, if it wasn't clarified. if it
Thankfully,
wasn't
there's
clarified.
rarely been...
There have rarely been
Rarely
conflicts, but I'm
conflicts.
just saying, to outline something clearly for whoever is doing scheduling, so that if there's any ambiguity,
So those kinds of examples would be most appropriate in a procedurals.
Yeah.
Policy.
Yeah.
Policy, which I think was another goal that we had around when the new fees were established by the school committee a few months ago, is to get that procedurals book together. So both the public as well as our administrators who are charged with implementing this policy have a few more details that will help them in helping others.
So the other ones were clerical things. There was an L missing in Ward High School in the athletic advisory council, and there was a space that needed in there. I didn't know if I could just pass it down.
I have one as well that I came across under 5607, the athletic advisory. I think it's within rather than within. I think it's just a typo. Last paragraph?
Yeah, I see it, okay.
Oh,
If you could just show
Yeah.
those out.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I see. And then it's the one, 5103, the school choice one. I think for number 2, it was it used to say May 7th and then it was switched to February. I think they meant to cross off the 7th, but I'm not sure. Or is it February 7th?
It is February 7th,
Okay.
because that would put it, that meeting date, what we've started to do is make that an annual event within the first meeting of, first February meeting for the school committee. So by saying by the 7th, that seemed to encompass
Okay.
any date, and still would put it within that first week,
Okay.
and therefore the first meeting of the school committee.
Any others?
That's all I had.
The intent around all of these seemed clear within the writing of them. I didn't know if at our second reading, which will be a live televised, this obviously is being recorded, but if we wanted to do more of a review of just what the changes was, or just have them, we'll be posting these up
Great.
at the website. So we can talk about them, summarize them at the second meeting, do you think would be helpful? for the
My only
public?
question
Yep.
came with the, in 5103.02, the taking out of the former residence. Did we put that someplace else? Just because I know we talked about, it's with the exception of seniors. I just want to make sure that's in there. We had talked about students who may move out of town but are still enrolled as seniors that we may,
No, that's in there. It is in there.
but it's crossed
It's
out.
just not there.
Well, those are approved
Yeah.
under school choice now.
Yeah, it's in
Okay,
the choice
okay,
section. That's why
okay.
it's taken out of that one.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Because this is referring to people who move out of state too.
Good. Yep.
Right here, moved out of state.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, I'll take a motion to waive the first reading.
Motion to waive the first reading on proposed
Right.
policies.
Yep.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Approval of amendments to the FLAC agreement. Mrs. Combs.
Yes, the FLAC board has voted to accept the North Middlesex Regional School District as a member of the FLAC member districts. That now proceeds where every current member of the district, of the collaborative, has the opportunity to either vote to support that or not, because it's a change basically in the collaborative agreement that's in place currently, and to amend that requires a vote of all the member districts. So I am recommending this. FLAC's actually starting to shift their placements and will be utilizing the FLAC services. I think they're a member of another collaborative or two at this point in time, and they're looking to shift given FLAC's proximity to them as compared to where a lot of the other programs in the collaboratives that they have been affiliated with were. That was my understanding of why they were interested in joining the collaborative.
What type of impact would that have on the students that utilize those services from Lunenburg?
For Lunenburg, we don't have that many students that utilize. It will just be more students that are able to access the programs at member district rates. If the collaboratives, they always serve the member district first, and then non-member districts have an option to come in. But they make sure that they are not raising the rates for member districts to serve non-member districts. So it should be neutral impact overall.
Any other questions, concerns? I'll take a motion to approve the addition of North Middlesex to the FLAC Collaborative.
Motion to approve North Middlesex into the FLAC
Okay.
cooperative.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Great.
And then what happens is Mr. Mackin is asked to sign and date, here's a blue pen, this document, and every other member district will do a similar signature page, and that gets amended then in that capacity. Thank you. I also did want to point out that after the Flax annual report had been sent in to the Mass Department of Education, they had a few things that they felt needed to be added to the report, and so that report was amended, and I just wanted to call that to your attention. You don't vote about that, but we do make sure that the public is aware that the annual report is posted at the website, their website. And now there's an amended portion to that as well, so I wanted to call that to your attention.
Okay. Second reading, the ELA updated curriculum, K through 8. Have we received any feedback from the public?
We have not at this point in time. We did send it out, and it's been posted since the day after our first reading. And the superintendent's update of last week did point it out, that it is there, awaiting feedback.
I just have a clarification question. I know that this is the K through 8 updated curriculum. What is happening with the 9 through 12? I know when we did social studies, it was the entire district.
Right.
And I did also notice that after going through, everybody who was involved in the ELA task force, I did note that while we had a representative from one of every grade level, we did only have one representative from the high school, which is 4 grade levels. And so I wondered if that has something to do. It seems like if one person from the high school is on the committee, I would assume that we're missing the high school part, that might have been fine. I don't know.
There was one representative that came forward to serve on the committee,
Okay.
And then it was opened up for additional folks to serve. Currently, there are 2 appointed to the committee. They just are needing to make the time to be able to complete their work.
Okay.
There's just been a variety of things that have happened that have just prevented them from completing the work that they...
So we'll get to do this with the 9 through 12 version, just like we're doing this with K through 8. Okay,
Correct.
I just wanted
Yes.
to...
And typically, we would have done it, K through 12, but we determined that, given that all of it is finished up to 8th grade, it was best to move that forward, and our intent is to have, by next fall at the latest,
Okay.
the other portions of it completed.
As long as my concern, we're not really concerned, but I would want the entire curriculum to be just a package together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we can say K through 12, this is what we have for English arts, just like we did for social studies. I think it's
There's
something to be said
there's
for
some thought being put into. I know that the middle school, high school, because it's co-located, is doing a lot more vertical teaming.
Okay.
In fact, on Friday, day after tomorrow, at the PD day, that's a portion of what's going to be going on as well. So one of the other things that we thought about, even though it's in 2 phases, and that is not generally how we would do that, if there need to be some middle school realignments, those can take place as the high school piece is put in place as well, and it'll have probably richer and deeper conversations than we would have had a year ago when we were putting this together, when everybody was still in separate buildings.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Take a motion to waive the second reading?
I'll make the motion to waive the second reading of the ELA updated curriculum.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public comment. I note that something I hadn't noticed until I got to this part of the agenda, that we do not have topics for future discussion on this agenda.
I noticed that as well.
So what I'd like to suggest is that we use the public comment for that.
Yes.
I'm hopeful that at a future meeting, perhaps our meeting first week of April, but at some point in our future agendas to look again at the 2017-18 school calendar, and potentially how factors that we as a committee would consider around when we create the calendar each year.
Okay, if I could drill down a little bit to
Yeah.
get, where what you're heading for. What kind of factors are you looking at?
Besides, I think one big factor we've had the last couple of years, we had a calendar committee, that took a look at that. Are we looking at the suggestions that were put forward from that committee? And there was actually a suggestion, I believe, when that committee was working to create another committee
Going forward.
going forward.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I think one thing we focused on is taking surveys. And that's the big thing I think we've evaluated this year and last year, was looking at the survey from the public. And are there more things we can and should look at? This year being a prime example of a lot of snow days. And if that is where we're going to trend, and maybe we need to, be looking at the 5 to 8 year trend when we're doing that. Are there more things we should consider when we do that?
Okay. Again, I don't know about how we can take into account historic data on snow days, because it's inconsistent from year to year to year. The past is no guarantee for the future. Unless we can get God on the committee, it won't matter much what the past experiences have been. We had a tough year this year. We've had tough years in the past. We've had easy years in the past. So to say that, well, there's some new information that we can present that will inform our decision making, I'm going to have to push back on that. There is no new information. We had a tough year. In terms of putting it back on the agenda, the committee, for this committee, debated, discussed, and voted. And it is the committee's decision that this is the 2017 calendar. We've now spent, in my estimation, we've now spent about 4 times the amount of meeting time that I've ever spent on my 8 years on the school committee, debating and discussing the calendar. We have many long meetings ahead of us. We have a budget next time. I don't know what value we can bring. There is no new data to discuss. If there is a future committee that wants to do that, that's up to some future committee. I just think that this committee has already made its decision.
I think that Ms. Ailes has brought to our attention that we should make policies surrounding the calendar. And I think part of that policy should be a date in which we can change the calendar. Since we make it so early in the year, that we might want to look at it again at a later date. People are all over Facebook saying, are we going to take away April break because of all the snow dates? And no, we are not going to, but we need to have it written down somewhere as to the last day that we could take away vacations. We don't have that anywhere.
Well, we actually had a practice,
We did.
and we should have it in policy, but we don't. We have
Do
practice.
not. I looked in the policy.
Again, we do not have it in practice, but we had it in practice. We don't have it in policy. And it's simple to add that to policy, which is it says, this calendar may be adjusted on or before February the 1st in the event of loss of instructional time due to emergencies and/or excessive snow days. That's the only time that we would do that. And what that would look at, obviously, is the April vacation.
February 1st is very early in the snow season. I
But
really think that we need to go and make
But
policy.
you can't change the February vacation.
No, you cannot. But you can.
And again, you don't know in January what February or March are going to look like. You have to put a stake in the ground somewhere.
I think that it's still.
Again,
needs to
if people want to put this on the agenda, I will take a motion to place it on the agenda.
Change policy. To make policy around a calendar, and a calendar committee that is not just internal but also external. That was suggested by the calendar committee.
My response to that would be the calendar committee. I know that you worked
Yeah.
tirelessly on the calendar
I looked
committee.
at the notes today.
But if that were a suggestion that we would look at to inform a policy decision, I, as a school committee member, think that it's within my right to ask who is on the committee, where all the stakeholders equally represented, teachers, students.
Yes, it's online, it's right on
everybody,
the town website.
Because if those stakeholders aren't all on there, then we really can't necessarily look at that. The other thing that we've done as the school committee this year is really focused on interest-based solutions. And so I would challenge that if we have this discussion again, that we focus not on what we all might want, right? What do we all want? But what is our goal? What is the goal for the children? Do we want them to get out early in June? If that's the goal, what are all of our possible solutions for that? And let's be creative and look at it, but let's not go in with one idea. This is what we want this, we want that. Because as we learned in our training, if we all go in with one thing, it's very difficult to come to a solution. But if we look at the problem, right, we can have a consensus on what's our concern. Are we concerned that they don't have consistency in instructional time with too many snow days? Are we concerned that it's too, I don't mean to put my back to you, are we concerned that they get out too late in June? If that's the concern, they get out too late in June, then let's try to find a solution that solves that without coming in with our decision already made about what the solution is. That's what I'm thinking, especially as I'm going through this interest-based, problem solving. That would be my suggestion moving forward. But I'm going to challenge that you have a new school committee or new members of the school committee, and that I don't feel completely comfortable going by what another group that I had no connection with or contact or able to put input into made.
Surveys.
So I
There were
feel,
surveys. After surveys, that was the initial group that did all of the calendar surveys. The notes are on the town webpage. The calendar committee, under school committee, there are notes, agendas, meetings.
Were there teachers on that committee?
Yes, there were. Look, Superintendent Combs sat on that
And
committee.
my understanding is that the
were there
result of the
teachers on-
surveys is
Yes,
that
there
people have
were.
split opinions about.
I know, she's saying there were no teachers.
There were no teachers on that
There were
committee.
no teachers on that committee. It was an advisory formed by the school committee. And I was the only school member, and the students were represented on that committee.
Okay.
And, to that point, there were guidelines that came out of that committee, and we've used those to develop alternate calendars for the last couple of years. And then we've taken options to folks, and what we find is people are pretty...
It's evenly
distributed between those
Yes.
those two. So that process of developing a couple calendars for people to look at hasn't necessarily resolved the angst, the concerns, what's going on with the committee. We've had 2 years now where we've developed 2 different calendars. This year it morphed into 3 calendars for people to look at, and people had their preferences. So that process has not necessarily got us to where I think everyone would like to be in terms of having a calendar that works for our students and works for the community as well. So
And I think
maybe
that-
the other approach is to have another problem-solving group around this.
Now that we've been trained in an interest-based problem-solving method that we know has proven successful. It's just a suggestion. I'm up for any conversation.
I do think it's a good one, because I feel like we do have problems that surround this, but inside of our buildings as well as outside of our buildings. And my concern is, if our trend moving forward is more snow days due to, I've had a personal observation the last few years, we have gone to great lengths in a good way around safety. We're not, those marginal calls are not being a push forward anymore to have school, which is a good thing from a safety perspective. But from a number of snow days perspective,
Right.
It's not. So if we're trending that way, the other part is, I hope that we could somehow clarify to the public, and I don't know if you ever can, there is a perception that I don't know how you change, that the 185th day is our last day. And you guys work in a school building, I don't know how you convince, but no, it's bad for people. it's bad in a lot of ways. So I don't know, that's just a side note of something, how we write on our calendar, whether we choose to write differently, because if you put that 185th date, that's what
the
sticks,
day that-
that's what
right,
sticks in
the last
folks'
day,
heads.
right.
So I would love to, just as an aside note, for us to find a different
And
way to
Pam's
write
doing
it.
a great job updating the website and
Absolutely.
keeping it like up
Well,
to date and
yeah,
tracking, but
Absolutely. But if you just look at the calendar strictly,
Yeah.
you know what I
If
mean?
that's
So
what
just
you have,
something
that
for us to
paper.
consider
And I
in the
know
future.
we let off 2 superintendents update ago with that. I think probably getting the buildings to talk about what our real
Right.
last day is at this point in time. You know, the 185th is because of the state mandate in terms of creating calendars.
Right.
It has to be in there.
Yeah.
Perhaps, you know, sort of an amendment or a side note to it.
Yeah.
But I do think there are issues potentially to be addressed aside from that. Interruption in, you know, in instructional time, when you have winters like this, if we're going to have more where we have more of this. And should we or could we be doing something more to look at alternative options as well, like blizzard bags? Saw somebody bring that up. It's not the first time I've heard discussion about those. So I would just love to see us take all of this a step farther. And, you know, do we go so far as to create a consistent calendar and not change every year?
Right.
Because while we look at options
Yeah.
each year, you know, it's
That's-
confusing.
It's the
Do we
policy,
choose-
then you don't have to, and if it's
That's
in
what we've been
policy,
saying.
right, and that's what
That's-
that was my point. So it doesn't have to be about,
No.
should we have February, should we have
No,
March, should we have
exactly.
April? What is our goal for students?
Right.
What are the ways that we can get to that goal?
And that's, if you
And
look at
and if
that-
we just look at that issue rather than what we all want, because we all have differing opinions, it's human nature, it's who we are, then we could probably come up with some great ideas,
You have to
you
look
know?
at the information on that.
Yes,
page,
I will
because
definitely.
it was
Thank
all
you
about
for letting me know
consistency.
about that, because I was
It's really
unaware,
all
but.
about consistency and having 5 days, weeks.
Right.
Just consistent,
And I
solid
do
blocks of
have
time.
some pause because there weren't any teachers on there, but I would say that that is a great place to start for information and the data we've received from the superintendent the last time. But again, I would just like to say that if this is something that, you know, we deem to go forward, that we start to look at the issue rather than what we all want or what we have all wanted in the past, that we challenge ourselves to really take in that interest-based
Right.
problem-solving strategies that we've learned and use them, because so far it's proving very well in other areas that we're working with people.
I think a lot of the guidelines that were developed were definitely things that there'll be a lot of consensus around.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And have been a practice in terms of developing the calendars. You know, one of the points is that the calendar was just initially developed within the school framework
Right.
and then brought to the school committee for you to make the final decision, and there was a desire to expand that and include more parent and guardian voices in it. That was to be done, and I think is being done through the school councils. In the last couple committee calendars, the school councils have been able to talk about the calendar before it's come to the school committee as well, but not necessarily in the development of it. And quite frankly, this year, you know, while I consulted with the LEA as per to the contract, we took the guidelines and developed the first calendar under the guidelines that were created by the advisory, and then a calendar that included a February and April break, basically. But a lot of the things are the same in both of the calendars that went forward, and then we had a third morph out of that, all for good reasons. But I think that we've made a good start, and that having all the major voices at the table will be helpful for everyone. I don't know that I'd recommend to you that you change a calendar for next year at this time. And certainly we weren't nobody was thinking about having April break, even when this was put at February. The thought was, that if it changed, that it possibly could be February, or this is the year that we also carried a March, at least one day in March that could be utilized for that. This calendar that Mr. Mackin had, where at one point in time it said it could be adjusted on or before February break. So
And there was one year where we actually did do an adjustment, and it was to the...
we've done adjustments
April
twice
break.
that no, they've both been to
February
break.
break.
We've never adjusted April break. Both times that we've adjusted a calendar, with the exception of a March date, I think this year we adjusted, the year of this calendar, we adjusted that March date.
There was the year of the ice storm, and then I believe we took
Another-
3 days off February when I think we had 9.
Yeah.
There was
We
no-
brought it down to 6.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say to the group to think about while we're chatting about it is that there's an idea that change is hard, right? Doing something different is hard. And so giving folks the idea, if we have this morphs into a problem-solving thing where we try to figure out how to solve this issue creatively, that we allow families time to adjust to the idea, and that we sort of maybe look out 2 years to changing a calendar so that people have time to sort of adjust to the idea. We don't want people to feel like they're being blindsided by taking away a vacation or plans, or they were planning on going to wherever with whoever. Just an idea that we don't have to, that if we're going to change something, we don't have to make it that year. It's within our control to say, you know what, this is what's going to be coming down the pike, right? This is what's going to be happening. So prepare for it. We can inform people about it, and then they can be ready to accept it and sort of have their plans in place. So no one's feeling like, they make a plan and now they can't do that, or they have somebody. Again, just another sort of idea that I've taken from our strategy sessions.
So what would be our next steps if we had interest in problem solving? Or looking at what?
My suggestion is you schedule a workshop.
Yeah.
I mean, if I am the sole person here, then it's, then it's all for, then it's...
No.
I'm
thought
willing
we were
to
gonna do
reach out to
policy.
we could
have to do a
reach out
workshop
to various stakeholders, both internal and external, to the calendar committee. We could appoint a subcommittee to work with representatives from other constituencies. I don't know if it would be another advisory, would be one way to look at it again, and designate who's going to make that up, who will be part of that.
I heard you say, Ms. Soroka, that you want to just go right to policy.
Well, no, I think that in policy you say that you're making a calendar committee that is not just internal. So that way you form one, you need to, I don't
Right.
think that you just keep having workshops, because people worked on this for a really long time last time. And we develop our calendar based on it, but we've never really said that anything in there has to stick and hold true. And all of those people who worked on it, if you look at how many meetings we had, they always feel like when they put the input in, we want to have this, that they did it all for nothing.
I do respect
I
that
would
people-
caution the group, though, that
Time is
if you bind yourself to a group other than the school committee and making the
Right.
school committee decisions,
Right.
I think it's a bad precedent.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's our responsibility with the advice, which we, as Superintendent Com said, we take the advice from the council. That doesn't mean that we have to follow it exactly. And my concern is and has always been that if the school committee at the time you had the calendar committee didn't adopt those things into policy, why? And that is what causes me pause. Why weren't those things adopted into policy at the time? And if they weren't adopted into policy at the time, there must have been a reason why, and that is why it's our due diligence is required to make sure that we've sort of looked at all the options.
And again, I caution the group about a policy being too proscriptive, that it says it, that it doesn't allow the group to deliberate. In fact, it prescribes the group. It tells the group what to do. And I don't think that that's in the best interest of the school committee, to create policy that prescribes what the school committee will do. Unless it's the school committee's decision to say, we will take that under advisement.
In policy now, it says that the school committee will establish a calendar.
Mhm.
Yep.
And in the contract with the LEA, it just says that they'll be, it says that they'll be consulted. And then there's a bit of time in terms as close as possible the start of the school year is. So there's a little bit in a contract, and then there's just it's what I said to you when you voted the calendar this year. It's your decision as a school committee. Here's 3 options. Here's the feedback. It's the school committee's decision.
I feel comfortable with the 2017-2018 calendar that we deliberated on, we thought about, we took all the pieces into consideration, we made our vote, and I think I feel good about that. Moving forward, it would be nice to have a little more problem solving so we can address the issues that came up and are continuing to come up for this, to figure out how we can find more collaboration.
And I could agree with that. I just don't want to re-litigate a discussion that we've made a decision on.
Correct. I'm in agreement with Ms. Weiss. I'm totally committed to using those strategies, and at a time when our agenda isn't so packed with budgets and things like that, that we can take a step back and look at it and do some real problem solving in a workshop setting, so that the next time we address the calendar issue, we do so having had the group of us come and look at that.
So for like the early in the 17-18 school year, start looking at the future.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, one of our summer meetings, we can definitely find a time to workshop when it's not, when our calendar or our agenda is not so packed, but at least that gives us time to read the minutes or the meeting minutes that Ms. Soroka was talking about. It allows us time to sort of gather some ideas so that when we can come to that workshop and be sort of using those strategies, the interest-based problem solving, that we then can look at hopefully all of the options.
Okay, so we'll note it for the record that the committee will set up a time to start that process.
It's unfortunate it feels like our problem solving could take a long time though.
Mhm.
Because if we're going to look at, giving people time, if we look at adjustments, and then, next year is what it is. And then, it
Well, that was
would
just a
take several
suggestion. I
years.
mean,
Okay.
you don't have to, that was just a suggestion. That doesn't, you can take it or leave it. I'm trying to look at all of everybody's perspective. Just trying to cover everybody's, and it's hard to do, but that's our job, is to try to, be problem solvers and represent everybody in the district, and it's not always an easy thing to do.
On this particular issue, no. It is not.
Okay. Reports. Finance Committee, I attended with Mrs. Combs. You heard from Mrs. Combs about the result of the Finance Committee. I just wanted to personally say that Mrs. Combs, I thought the presentation was thorough, and I think that the response was good by the members of the Finance Committee. Anybody have a school council meeting?
No, they were canceled.
PTO?
PTO met on Monday. I'd like to report that membership is at 281, which is tied with last year's record high of membership. So we're hoping to break the record by one more person. So if anyone has not joined, this would be a really great time to help us break that record. It would be awesome.
Do I have to have a kid in the school?
You do not.
There you go.
Really?
Sign me
You
up.
can be the tiebreaker.
You can be the tiebreaker.
Sign me up.
Yeah. Go on the Lunenburg
Lunenburg
website.
PTO.
Done.
Done.
Join us.
Me too.
Parents' Night Out is going to be on the April 8th, so that was our last meeting before that. Is going to happen. The publicity to reach the community. We've got flyers going home, Facebook, newspapers, trying to get everyone to...
How many tickets have you sold?
One.
That's it?
Yes. So we're concerned that people are not hearing about how fun it's going to be. We're working on hot and cold appetizers, there's socializing, silent
What's the meeting
auction.
again?
It's April 8th.
The trivia.
It's trivia.
If you
Trivia.
want to
I
be
thought you were
there.
bringing a team.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, we're going to bring a whole team, come on.
I am.
And if you don't have a team, you will create one when you get there. There will be people like myself who don't have a team. and just-
For the people that will be watching that, can we give the details all over again? The where, the when?
Okay, it's at Manusnack Country Club on April 8th at 7 p.m. There's going to be time for socializing, hot and cold appetizers. There's a silent auction. They're pulling all the baskets together. It's team trivia. It's a very social event, so there should be no anxiety that you're going to be on the spot with a microphone. The team actually works together to answer the trivia questions. So you've got everybody working together. You write it on a piece of paper and you submit it. So it's a team social event, not stressful. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you have a team, like we'd love to see an administrative team or teacher team,
Throw it down.
back and forth. If there are any
Wow.
club or school groups, booster clubs or whatnot, that they could form teams. But if you're like myself and you don't have a team, then you get to meet a lot of people around the community and join and meet other people. So I think that would be a really fun thing to do also. So that's that part. I also want to, moving on to a different subject, the graduating seniors, there's a scholarship deadline for the PTO scholarship, the $1,500 scholarship. The deadline is April 12th. And all the information about that is at the PTO website. Super simple type of application process where they have their membership status. You had to have been a PTO member for all of your high school. And for those who were part of the high school when 8th grade was there, it would have included your 8th grade year. Your membership status, community service, a quick resume, and an essay. And that is what you need to submit an application for the scholarship. Our next meeting will be April 8th, and Superintendent Combs will be there.
It can't
Or
be
10th,
April.
sorry. I got April 8th on mine. Everything's happening on the 8th. No, the meeting is on the 10th. Sorry.
Great. Policy, is there anything to add besides all the great work that we see today?
Nope,
Okay. Capital planning,
no.
wellness,
We were supposed to be today.
It was canceled, right?
Yes,
and
canceled today.
PacSal we don't have yet. Reuse has not met. Start time, is it doing anything? with
No,
that?
we're not doing anything.
No.
Right. Lifelong Learning Advisor.
Tomorrow night.
But we would need, who's on our, it's me, you, and who else?
Me.
Okay. Because it was Colleen when I looked at the notes.
And start time is meeting tomorrow night.
Okay.
No, wait, which, who
Start
is,
time?
no.
I'm sorry,
time.
lifelong.
I'm like,
Lifelong learning.
Sorry.
I'm like, no, we're
Lifelong
not.
tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And Strategic Vision Steering
Life.
Committee.
No meeting since the last one. I'm not sure what the next
I
step
think
is.
the
We're working on
steering
it.
committee, the visioning steering committee is complete. The consultants ask for an administrator, a special educator, a technology educator, or somebody, if not with that title, but somebody who's into technology, and a teacher from each one of the schools to serve on the strategic planning committee, steering committee, which will start talking about possible goals and objectives and timelines around the vision pieces that came out of the steering committee, the visioning committee. That committee's work is complete, as promised. I think they had 4 meetings,
Yeah.
right? And the planning steering committee is supposed to meet 3 times for 2 hours, and that's going to start next week
Okay.
on Thursday from 2 to 4:30.
Can we have a thank you sent from the school committee to the members of the visioning committee?
Yes,
Thank you
absolutely.
for their work.
Yep.
It's all fine with you, I'll just sign off for the school committee?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
That's all, folks. We now are going to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and not to return to public session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 3. I will take a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second? Okay, this is a roll call.
Ms. Weiss?
Here?
Ms. Ailes?
Here.
Ms. Bertrand?
Here.
Ms. Soroka?
Here.
Mr. Mackey?
Here. Thank you. Good night.
I know, I was going to say, really, come on. Only have a couple more to go, right?
This is 3.
Right? I do not have a chair's report this evening. Public comment?
I have a public comment.
Yes.
I wanted to compliment Superintendent Combs on her latest superintendent news. She changed the format. It's very subtle, but I really liked the visual impact. They were bulleted, and then the keywords in each were in bold, so it made it really quick to scan through. For those who don't have the time to read through, or you want to go back and refresh, it was really visually very pleasing.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
I'm glad
thank you.
that is user-friendly, and people that want to drill down for more information are able to do that with the links. So thank you for that feedback.
All righty. We have warrants that are making their way. Minutes of March the 1st.
We have a line item.
Oh, we do?
Transfer.
Oh, that's right, you did
To
say that.
recommend,
Yep.
yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Let me set the context and give a little history around this particular piece of information. Because this line item transfer request is a follow-along to a line item transfer that has already been executed by this committee to move $60,000 worth of surplus utilities funding that is in the budget, and that surplus is there for 3 primary reasons. First, we wanted to make sure going into this year's budget that there was adequate funding in that utilities lines to move into a building that we had no history behind. We had some projections, but we didn't want to come up on the other side of the equation. Number 2, there was some reduction in the cost of natural gas that translated to a significant savings for us. And then number 3, the energy savings, our solar projects that have been going on and coming online, not only the one for this building, but several others that we've been participating in, that Mr. Londa has been just provided such great leadership for everybody around. All of those things combined to create this surplus, which we were then able to repurpose to take care of 2 very important items, and that's the placement of the security cameras into the primary school as well as into the Turkey Hill Elementary School. With the primary school, there's also some addition of another card reader for that bus loop door, as well as a buzzer, I think, there. So there was some added features in addition to the cameras, and we had confirmation today from the volunteer Mr. Callahan, who over the next couple Saturdays is going to be working to run the cable that then Centrix will come in and connect the cameras to. But that was a savings to have that volunteer be able to do this. And as I think everybody is aware, all of this has been in response to that situation where we had an intruder in the after-school program over at Turkey Hill Middle School. We had no way to share with the police what that person looked like other than the verbal reports because there were no security cameras in that building. And these security camera systems have actually been on our capital plan for several years trying to get funded and get put in place. So the stars aligned in some regard, and this is the second part of a request to transfer $45,000 from the electricity line to basically the line that currently contains $60,000 that was transferred there originally to increase it to $105,000, and the line that it's going into is that capital improvement line. And as an add-on to that particular line item change, Mr. Londa has already generated this required form to the Capital Planning Committee. It also goes to the town accountant, the Finance Committee, and the town manager, just giving them notice that we are utilizing operational funds to make these capital purchases because of the way that our capital plan follows. So it's not requesting any money for them, it's to give them notice that the money is in the budget. I think we've talked about this. I know I talked to FinCom about it when I presented at the budget, the school's budget hearing to the FinCom, and I know the Board of Selectmen have discussed this as well. So that was the other document that I wanted to share with you that Mr. Londa is prepared, because we're moving forward on that project. The cabling we purchased, the wiring, if you will, for the volunteer to start now putting in the trays and running to the points where the cameras will then be connected. So that's the line item transfer, and I recommend approval.
And I'll take a motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Now we get to the minutes. We have March 1 and March 15. Were there any additions, corrections? We will assume those approved. Superintendent's report.
Yes. Well, welcome back, everyone, from April break. It certainly was beautiful for most of the week, I think, for everyone who stayed at home, and I know some people were on the road, so we were glad to have all our faculty and staff and the students return. I know our students have been working so hard. I do want to acknowledge all the students who have been so busy in grades 3 through 8, as well as the high school classrooms as well, who have been taking MCAS. We have another round of MCAS, the math testing, coming up next week. But I also, in addition to commending the students for their focus, they always take it very seriously. They always give it their best interest. Their parents support them, making sure they get rested the night before and are ready to go in the morning, and they have their snacks prepared and available to just give everybody the best opportunity to do their best, perform their best on those assessments. And, you know, I think it was a really positive commentary about how our IT department has really geared up for this. We have the devices, we have the infrastructure. It worked over at Turkey Hill Elementary School to be able to do a grade level testing there because with the exception of the 3rd grade, all our assessment for 4th grade through 8th grade was done computer-based. That was something that was an option, but it was strongly encouraged because that's where MCAS 2.0 is moving towards all computer-based assessment, and it was a shift. The feedback that we had is that students in particular really felt very comfortable with the assessment being done on the devices. It did take all the devices offline for that period of time, so that's one of the drawbacks that we saw in terms of having that happen, because the devices must be very much locked down to only be able to access the MCAS information. As you can understand, that it can't have other kinds of things. They can't have access to the internet while they're taking the
MCAS is an open book
That's
test.
right. It's not an open internet book test. So, but I know Mr. Maladrinos spent a lot of time working with the other technology consultants, making sure that the infrastructure in this school, as well as the changes that we've made over time over at the elementary school and the primary school. The primary school hasn't done that testing, but the changes there just to make sure that works well for everyone, because I think we all can well imagine a scenario that we don't want to have happen is where students are ready, they're ready to perform, and all of a sudden the technology starts failing them, or there's a big hiccup around that. So I did want to call that to your attention. I also wanted to let you know that tomorrow, I think the final meeting of the task force that's doing that second part of our strategic planning, looking at establishing goals as well as some suggestions around a plan with timelines and responsibilities being articulated from those goals and the targets that are being suggested. That group's working tomorrow afternoon. And then we'll schedule a time for them to be presenting to this committee, and we'll go through a process of looking at what the feedback was around the mission statement, the core values, the visions, as well as the plan in its entirety, and start moving forward. Because of the timing for this, I have suggested to the principals and the school council some of the school improvement plans at this point in time have a couple years worth of goals that were articulated starting this year. We felt it important for them to be able to complete the second year of those goals, particularly knowing that this plan is not going to be ready, wasn't going to be ready to write towards until really next year. And with our reconfiguration and the opening of this building, a lot of the goals in the plans were to really get well established within our new reconfiguration as well as the facilities. So we will continue to finish up the plans and look towards this new district improvement plan to guide our efforts for the next 5 years. So we continue to be very excited about it. Since it was a town-wide edition of the Lunenburg Ledger, I opted to re-approach the community because it went to a broader base than it dawned on me the first time I put that out there. It just went to the subscribers. So I felt it would be helpful to have it go in a town-wide edition to really address that full span of all the community members, and hopefully they took us up on our invitation to give us feedback and respond, and we'll hear from Mr. Miley tomorrow. I'll check in with him and see about the feedback that he's getting around the first phase, the mission, the core values, and the vision statements. So I wanted to also let you know that Mr. Londa made me aware earlier today or late this afternoon that National Grid has provided 2 payments to the town of Lunenburg for energy efficiency on the middle school, high school project. One was in the amount of $8,130.56. and another one in the amount of $4,573.54 for a grand total of $12,704.10. Those, as I said, are returned to the town because they're connected with the project, so they're associated as rebates with that project. The MSBA will also get their share of those energy savings rebates. Those are added to the $83,061 that Unitil has also provided at an earlier date. Unitil provided that. So, it's setting right at that $100,000 mark in terms of energy efficient rebates that the project receives. So I wanted to share that information with the public as well. I want to remind everyone, and I bet Eliza will probably talk about this more, but Your Good Man Charlie Brown is coming up on May 19th and 20th, and I just encourage everyone to come out. Our Lifelong Learning series tonight is presenting the Chasing Ice movie. Documentary, and so there's a lot, as usual, going on. So that's my superintendent's report. Thank you.
Wonderful. And we're very thankful for Mr. Callahan for stepping up to give us a hand with the security systems.
Absolutely.
And Ms. Raboyne, the student rep report?
Yeah, as Superintendent Combs said, the students are refreshed and caught up on sleep after the April break. The third term just ended the Friday before break, and I believe grades are final as of today, so report cards should be coming out. Yeah, the students are ready and motivated to start the fourth and final term. We have spring sports have finally kicked off their games: track, baseball, softball, and lacrosse. Tomorrow is the first track meet. I believe it is away, and the first home girls varsity game is tomorrow at 7 against Oakmont. So that should be a pretty good game. As Superintendent Combs also stated, the play, Your Good Boy Charlie Brown.
Good man.
Good man, sorry. Good man Charlie Brown. Rehearsals have started, and that will be performed in May. And then also this Friday, the class of 2020 will be presenting a movie night as a fundraiser for their class from 6 to 10. And at 6 o'clock they will be playing Moana, and then 8 o'clock they'll be playing Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Admissions is $3 for kids and then $5 for adults. So that's all.
Thank you very much. School Building Committee report. We're in the final stages of closeout of the punch list items and some additional work that we saw was needed during the, in our almost, fully functional first year. There was some issues around drainage in the student parking area and the entry by the field, which has been remediated. The athletic field signs, the scoreboard is up and operational. There are some other small items that are being attended to, one of which was we discovered during the winter that the snow was apt to slide from the roof, and so we're in the midst of reviewing and improving snow guards for those areas to protect the sanitary stacks and the equipment. And that will be dealt with at the next School Building Committee, which is currently scheduled for the second Wednesday of May. I expect that to be, unless something else comes up, the actual last formal meeting of the Building Committee. It's been a good run.
A long one.
And a long run. With a couple of sprints involved. All righty. New business. We have a donation?
We have a couple donations, actually. Once again, this year, the Association of Professional Administrators from the Fitchburg State University have given us a $400 donation, and that $400 donation is made to support our Special Olympics athletes participating in the Special Olympics regional event that is going on, I believe, Friday is when that's happening. So our best buddies and Special Olympians will be in attendance with that. We'll hope for a warm, sunny day for them, right temperatures. temperatures, not too cold, not too hot. It's always an amazing experience for the students and a very positive one for all of us who are able to feel the joy and the sense of accomplishment and just the solidarity of the athletes as they compete in that event. So we'll look forward to enjoying that time with our athletes, and I know the students at the high school and middle schools really, and elementary school, do a nice job of with send-offs as well as welcome backs to the athletes, and we appreciate all their support of the athletes as well. And we appreciate this support in terms of the $400 to pay for the bus for the students to be able to participate. So I recommend acknowledgement and acceptance and acknowledgement with thanks of this donation again this year. They've been doing this for probably 6 or 7 years now, I think.
So I'll take a motion to accept with our thanks.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation of $400 from Fitchburg State for the Special Olympics athletes.
All those in favor? Aye. Wonderful.
Thank you. And the other two donations that I wanted to acknowledge are both Hannaford Helps donations, one in the amount of $657 for the Turkey Hill Elementary School, and for the Lunenburg Primary School, the amount of $693. So we thank all of those individuals who, during the time that the donation box is there for the designated school, have contributed in supporting our students and school activities by those donations through the Hannaford Helps program. So that's just an acknowledgement.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have the initial approval of out-of-state overnight music trip.
We do. We have the wonderful
And
Mrs.
Ms.
Wardwell
Wardwell.
here to talk about this opportunity that has become somewhat of a tradition.
Yeah.
I think last year we kind of stayed close to home.
We did, and it ended up turning out great. Last year I was here to get approval for this trip, but then we ended up heading to Boston, just nature of cost and timing, etc. But Faith Merchant and I have put together a tentative itinerary for a trip to Nashville in 2018. Yeah, so we're excited. There's obviously a lot that's tentative because flights don't open up until September, October, and we don't know exactly the cost until flights open up. And we checked, this April vacation as compared to September. And this April vacation flights were around $400, and September it was $92.
Wow.
This is a huge range. So, yeah.
They know it's April break.
Right. So our hope is that after I speak with you, then I can kind of get a better gauge on how many students might be going, with a guesstimate of about $1,000 per student, which is obviously expensive. There have been a few fundraising opportunities already, and there will continue to be more for students to be hands-on, trying to reduce the cost of the trip. And then I'll have a meeting with students and parents to kind of get that commitment, because once we know how many kids will travel, we'll then be able to get ideas for flights and get ideas for venues, where you're trying to reserve seats. And my hope is we could have 40 students travel, which is about where we've been in the last 3 trips that we've taken. With the cost that certainly might deter students. But I know many travel to Europe and Iceland, so they make it work if they really want to go. And it's the first time we would fly, so we're excited about that. And it would include a performance at the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah.
Which would be awesome. And then attending a performance and a backstage tour. And there's obviously a lot of rich music history down there. So the hope is we do a tour of the RCA studio. And supposedly, I actually just got in one of the recent Music Educator magazines, their feature in Nashville, coincidentally. So I need to look into these a little bit more. But Country Music Hall of Fame, and you can actually cut a recording. So you'll get all the kids in the recording studio and make your own recording in the same studio that maybe Dolly Parton recorded in. Yeah, and then obviously there would be some downtime to just explore Nashville with their chaperones. It would be a 3-night, 4-day trip. So our hope would be, we would leave the first weekend of April vacation and come back that Wednesday. But again, once we have a better idea of students participating and when flights open up, we'll know for sure. Will we leave Sunday and come back Wednesday? Maybe it makes more sense to leave Monday and come back Thursday, or maybe Friday night and come back. So there's a little bit of unknown in terms of that, just because we can't see the flights. And we need to make sure there are that many seats available for all of the students to travel at the same time. But we're really excited about the opportunity, and I think the kids would be really pumped to perform there. I mean, Boston is really cool, but Nashville, really cool. Yeah. So that's our proposal, and hopefully we can make it.
Questions?
How many chaperones do you think you'd have for?
So we usually do a 10 to 1, and then I like to take extra just because I want to know we have an extra. If God forbid somebody gets sick or injured. Faith actually travels with us, which is always wonderful. And one of the challenges that we're trying to kind of brainstorm is how do we get the equipment down there? Because the band's going to play, we have a lot of equipment that we travel with. And so one thought I had was connecting with a high school down there, and maybe we can borrow their equipment, but also do an exchange concert with them. Another possibility is we rent a truck, and drive it down there, and have whoever's driving the truck meet us, once we get to the hotel. So between Faith, myself, a parent driving the truck, assuming we would have 40 students, we would probably have 5 chaperones at a minimum. One thing Faith and I also talked about, and I'm not sure how we would handle it, we would need to see how many kids are planning to participate. Of course, everybody will want to go. I spoke to Brian Spatafino, and he's like, well, how many is a chaperone? My husband's like, oh, I need to go. I can drive the truck. And I know sometimes people, like adults or parents, have paid to travel on some of these trips in the past. And I'm not sure how we would handle that. Because unlike a trip to Boston where we're renting a bus to get us there, and then the bus will stay with us. We're going to fly down, and then we'll have a bus to get there. The parents would have to pay they would pay full price. There would be no cut where the chaperones aren't paying the full price. And so I'm not sure how that part would go, but for just the chaperone piece, we would probably have about 5 based on the students.
And just to refresh everyone's memory, particularly mine, my recollection is that you've done New York twice, and kind of different experiences, but some overlap, which, as I recall, you performed on the aircraft carrier.
Yeah, on the Intrepid.
On the Intrepid that's in the Hudson there. And
That
that was a really exciting opportunity for the students, as well as just being able to see Broadway and see a Broadway production on Broadway. And then Boston last year. And you performed at
Faneuil Hall.
Yes.
We were street performers in the morning. It was amazing, aside from the fact that it was windy and the dollar bills just flew over. But other than that, it was great.
It was the fundraising for
and the parents actually could come. So we had a whole Lunenburg crowd in the middle of Faneuil Hall.
So thank you, Ms. Wardwell. These are wonderful experiences for the students on multiple levels, and I really commend Mrs. Wardwell and all the music aiders who help support this, because it's a big undertaking to take students even to Boston, and it takes a lot of time and preparation, but they're experiences that the students will hold on to for the rest of their lives, and I've seen the students form this concept about how they want to either professionally explore more music or a music-related field as a result of having these opportunities. So our new mission includes the word passion, and these kinds of opportunities, especially trying to keep them as affordable as possible. I know I'm not minimizing $1,000, but it's not $4,000.
Right.
Those opportunities are really invaluable for students, so thank you. for the time. And I do recommend initial approval and continuing to see what the numbers of students that can participate, can commit to participating, and what the final dollar figures might be.
And our plan would be that we would break it into 3 or 4 payments and have the first one up front and then try to avoid the holidays so that they can kind of budget accordingly. And the sooner, they know what that is, if they really are committed to it, they can kind of plan accordingly.
And the fundraising is done as a group, so no individual students are given assigned targets to fundraise by policy.
Right.
The fundraising just helps support and supplement.
Yes, and so sometimes when we went to Boston, the Music Theater said, well, we'll cover the cost of the bus to reduce the cost for everybody.
Right.
Any other questions?
No.
Then I'll take a motion.
I make a motion that we give initial approval for the Nashville trip for the music group.
And there's a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much, of course.
And
You want to come along.
Mrs. Wardwell will be back just prior to a couple months prior to the
Sure.
trip going out to give all the final facts
Right.
and figures and get the final blessing.
And I'll stay in touch with you as things develop for sure.
Great, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
All right, we're to action items. We have the third reading of the ELA updated curriculum for K through 8. Did we receive any further public comment?
We have not received any public comment, and we have been trying to make sure that the public is aware that it's out there and accessible. And I did pass along the very positive comments from the school committee in terms of after you had a chance to look through the curriculum and shared those with the committee. And of course, this is just the first step, and also we need to get the 9 through 12 piece completed as part of this as well. But we want to keep this moving along, and so I'm recommending final approval with this third reading.
Take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the ELA updated curriculum.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And you did say, Superintendent Combs, that when 9 through 12 was done, that would come to us?
That's
very
correct,
quickly.
yes.
Okay.
Go through the same process, yeah. And, we have some thoughts that there might be some tweaking of maybe 7 and 8 as a result of the 9 through 12 work. So this will be looked at in its entirety and connected K through 12 before we're done.
Okay. Calendar, next steps. You want to begin that discussion?
Just after our last discussion, we had a couple ideas of starting some working groups. I think at this point in the year, we're not talking about any changes to the calendar that's been set for next year, but maybe we are. I think if we are talking any changes or adaptations based upon snow days, if that's what we're looking at, that the sooner that we get those decisions made and out to our community, the better. Otherwise, what I recommend is we think about how we might want to form that working group to start developing the next school calendar through. Since we had the advisory, we've been developing 2 different calendars, different options of calendars, and then asking people to look at those. I don't know that that's a satisfactory process for us in terms of bringing our community together in a calendar and setting the calendar. And I really commend the committee for continuing to take all of this input that they're receiving and looking for a way to craft that where people can feel heard, but we create a calendar that works for our educational program as well as our community. So I just didn't know about forming that work group, if that's something as part of our reorganization that we'd set aside as another, like a policy committee. I think that we have had discussion at this table that it's more like the wellness advisory, perhaps, where it would have representation from our teachers and educators, as well as parents and school committee members. So I just am trying to get a feel for what specific next steps would respond to the direction the school committee wants to go.
I think input from multiple groups is a good thing. I don't think it would be a bad idea to look at an advisory committee. I mean, I think would we set a charge with it? I don't know.
It would have to be something different than the advisory that happened in the past, because there are things that weren't resolved from that we're still now discussing. So there has to be something different. Maybe it is a policy. I'm not sure.
I would say that I'm just going to use our experience with the bargaining, right? So we're using the interest-based approach, thank you. The interest-based approach style to do the contract with the LEA. So in that concept, you come together with a concern or an issue to be solved. So you go into it with what are we trying to figure out? And I think that, and I did go back and read all of the minutes from the calendar advisory committee that was a couple of years ago, and I had shared that link with Meredith as well, which was actually really helpful to go back and read like the minutes from all of that to try to follow along. I think that if we start another committee or an advisory group, there needs to be a goal. Like, what's the objective? What are we trying, just like with the start and end time committee, or with the reuse committee, or strategic visioning. Like, Meredith was just on the strategic visioning. Like, what was your charge? Was it to create something? So if we are having a calendar committee and the goal is to come up with the policy that the Lunenburg School Committee will follow, then that we need to have a goal, come to an agreement, and then have it be done.
Right.
And then we never...
Just done.
Done.
Yeah.
But I will say that the concern for me, and I think I mentioned it before, was in going through the minutes of the advisory committee. There wasn't, and I don't have them in front of me, I'm pointing at Meredith because I see she has notes there, and she's a good doobie and she prints stuff out, but there weren't educators on there.
No. No.
And that's always concerning when you don't have all the stakeholders involved, just as a matter of, in each of these committees, I think you have stakeholders involved. Like the reuse committee, I imagine you have all the stakeholders involved. Capital planning, I imagine we have all the stakeholders involved. PT, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think if we're going to have a committee, we should make sure we have all the stakeholders involved. So, I'm for having that. I really love the interest-based approach that we're using. I'm a big fan of it. It's been very, very successful in what we've been using it for so far. And I would welcome that we use that again and we really see what our issue is. And if we come up with something wildly creative and try it in Lunenburg, then fantastic. You know, if we're going to look at, and I said this before, if we're going to look at, you know, do we have only 70% of our school weeks, you know, are only 70% of our weeks 5 days? Maybe that's a problem. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, let's find what the real issue is, because we can't keep coming to each other and saying, we want March, or we want April vacation, or we want, you know what I mean? We could go back and forth forever on that. But let's really look, like, what's our underlying goal for kids? What's our underlying goal or objective for students? And let's figure out some creative ways to solve that.
I would like one of the goals to be that they don't have homework over breaks.
So I think that we need to like focus on,
That's
you know,
great.
We're making some progress. with it.
Okay,
I think
so, but like that, so we
But
need to have it focused on like,
Big project
so
on
we
Monday.
need to have a focus on the calendar, right? Like that is not related.
I know, but-
Sorry, that's not related to the calendar.
But if it's a break and they
But-
say that kids need a break.
But again, what's the charge? And that's what I was saying.
So that is a homework committee.
That's a homework, but that I think should be covered, like when you have a break for the kids, then I think the school committee then says the break is a break and there's no homework. It's a no homework break. That is
That's a
something-
policy.
Right.
That's a policy.
Okay.
There's
So-
a homework policy, so that probably would be,
That's
if there's a
what-
concern there, that's where you
Yeah,
go.
that's
Right, so those
Right,
are
that's
things, like, and I
right.
think like
Right.
so I'm in favor of having having the calendar subcommittee, if it involves using the strategies that we have learned with interest-based, what did you say?
Bargaining.
I don't know why. I
Interest-based approaches.
Interest-based approaches.
Just
Thank
as
you.
clarification around the governance structures here, you have subcommittees which are comprised of members, only of members of the
Oh,
school.
sorry.
You
Nope,
have-
that's not what I want.
Yeah, that's
You
not what
have-
you want.
You have designated representatives to certain committees, like the capital planning
Right.
committee, who represent the school committee
Right.
on those. The advisories are specific groups of bodies, and you say, are bodies of individuals, and you say who makes it up, number one. And then, and this is in policy, the next thing you say is what is their charge? Now, they can't set policy, they can recommend policy, they make recommendations, they study and report, and they do all of those kinds of things. But at the end, when it comes to the calendar, the school committee sets that calendar.
And I think that was the question that I asked before, right? When I started on this committee, I asked the question, if the advisory committee from a few years ago came to the school committee with their recommendations for the school calendar, and the school committee at the time did not take and make that a policy, my question was why? If the school committee at that time never took into consideration, never took the advice of the committee, the advisory committee, and made what the advisory committee said into policy, then we don't have to follow it because it was not made into policy. And that is what I was standing by when I was making my recommendations on the calendar. So, again, if we want something to be made that we follow all the time, we need to get it into policy. So, therefore, I would be willing to, go forth and give my support to a group that would like to work on that.
Does that make it a two-step process where you would have an advisory, and then the advisory would come here, and then there would be a subcommittee, and the subcommittee would then have to turn it into policy?
And then the policy would have to...
Well, the policy subcommittee would then
have
have,
to-
there would have to,
It would have to
wouldn't
go
we
through the
have
policy
to,
subcommittee.
It would go to
And
the...
sometimes through a subcommittee, you can maybe streamline that by having advisors to the committee that you've empowered that are school committee members to do that, to give input. And then you have a public reading. I'm thinking of a notion of where it becomes somewhat similar to the policy subcommittee and how policies go forward. Because the policy subcommittee and I work with different constituents and get input from folks. They come, they sit down at the table with us,
Right.
and we talk about language in the policies and those kinds of things. Then make a final decision and bring it up to the committee for a first reading and then the public input process.
Right.
So the notion of, that's why I kept thinking about maybe calling it a work group, because I'm not sure that the policy that forms an advisory really gets us to where we are trying to get to.
right.
We've already been there.
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah.
Workshop.
So just a working group or a workshop committee
Workshop.
where we invite
Like you do the
specific
IBB
folks to
workshop.
come sit down with us, and we talk about the calendar, and we use a process to do that.
Like the IBB workshop we did, like a workshop, calendar work.
A workshop, yes. I mean, the Board of Selectmen used the workshop concept to do similar kinds of, really deep work, things that you just can't do at a general
Right.
meeting.
Yes.
And you
That's
invite
good.
people to come and participate.
Sure.
I'll bring snacks.
So it sounds like we're sort of settling into doing a workshop
But
around this.
Then you're going to invite parents too? It's a
Uh,
workshop. You'd
it's
have
a
to
workshop.
Up to this
invite-
group to
Yeah, we
define
have
it,
to
yep.
workshop
Sure.
first and decide who we
But
want
that's
to
what I-
invite.
you
So
just-
let me
yeah.
take that
Yeah.
concept
Okay.
and work with it little and come
There
back
you-
with a
great,
proposal.
great. I
Okay?
love it.
Okay? That's helpful to me as I
Okay.
listen to you, and that's what I needed, is just more understanding of the direction and the outcomes that the school committee is looking
And
for. So-
parents are easy to tap on school advisory councils.
Yeah.
You just ask the ones that are already on school
Right,
advisory
right,
councils
yeah.
to come,
Mm-hmm.
because they're already volunteering.
Right.
Okay. Good, so the action out of that is that you'll come back
I'll
to
come with
us
a proposal
with a
about,
proposal.
yeah.
Great. Discussion, second reading, the Athletic Advisory Council, that's the 5607 draft. 37101, school lunch insufficient funds / negative balance revision. And the 1202 facilities use policy revision. So have we received any comments yet on any of those policies?
We have not, but I just talked to our food service director, and she feels like we are receiving some response to the proposed changes already in the food service insufficient funds policy,
Oh, really?
because they had a significant number of payments come
Really?
in after
Wow.
the last two superintendent's updates, where we've,
Thank goodness.
you
You
know,
were told
kind of
them.
highlighted some of the changes going forward to that. So we didn't get any comments, but there was this.
Well,
yeah,
positive.
at least-
It got better. Yeah. It got better.
Today, or,
So, but in terms of, we always provide that link and ask, and have received in the past commentary from public comments, just people asking questions or, providing additional information, and we always appreciate that feedback. And that's why this process takes at a minimum 6 weeks before you actually adopt a policy. Because policies are important things in the operation of our schools and other organizations. So this is the second reading, and I think we will just continue to highlight the changes for folks as we move forward.
So I'll take a motion to waive the second reading.
Motion to waive the second reading of policies, Athletic Advisory Council 5607 draft and 3701 school lunch insufficient funds and 1202 facilities policy revision.
All those in favor? Okay, acknowledgement of lifelong learning member withdrawals. There's an S on that. That means multiple?
Yes.
Yes, and this is just to put on the record that Ms. Ann Gilman and, can you help me with?
Mandy Trank.
Mandy Trank were originally appointed to this committee, and circumstances have prevented them from fulfilling their responsibilities. And so that makes it difficult for the Lifelong Learning Committee to have a quorum present to do business, and so we just want to formally acknowledge that those two individuals have been withdrawn. We don't have recommendations around replacing them, and our recommendation is that the Lifelong Learning Advisory Committee continue to function and fulfill its charge with a quorum made up of the remaining members.
And how many remaining members?
5.
That's a great solution.
Yeah.
So I'll take a motion.
And didn't need a motion. When we checked
Okay.
with the town clerk on this, she said just that we needed to make sure that the school committee was full and the public were fully aware of this. But it didn't,
Great.
it
Just
didn't
an
need to be
acknowledgement.
actionable. It just needed an acknowledgement of those resignations.
Great. Any further public comment? Seeing none. Reports. I have not been to the last Finance Committee. That was a presentation, correct?
I think they were working on the warrant, the
Yeah.
Finance Committee, and moved most of the things.
Right, so everybody should have received the warrants
Oh,
by
yep,
now,
yeah.
and
Yep.
the report.
Yep.
Okay, school councils?
I had the primary school council just today. I'm starting with the youngest first. You can go.
Okay, PTO?
Oh,
No,
we
we
have
don't.
no,
Right, we
no,
don't.
we have a lot. She's
Oh.
going to start. I had the
Have one.
primary school council just today, and everything is great down there. They just had the high school band there today. Fantastic. It's a great event. They played for the students, and the students sang a song back to them, and then they went to all the classrooms. And then we got updates from all the grade levels, pre-K. Went on a field trip on a bus. They were very excited. I know, very excited, 3 and 4-year-olds. Kindergarten, they're working on some science focus lessons, getting ready for some other projects. First grade just finished their HATS performance and their community service learning project for the pet shelter. Second grade's working on their ancestor project and their geography unit. And so then we were just working on our school improvement plan, which we talked about a little bit, keeping in line with the school and the district vision statement of just talking about that. So we're just waiting for the budget. That's the update.
I have Turkey Hill Elementary School. We had 2 meetings since one at the end of last month and one yesterday. They're getting rid of the end of the year celebration, and they're moving back to field days for grades 3 through 5. Heidi, Mrs. Champagne, talked about pursuing passion into the SIP. She loves that word, and we're going to work on that for the school improvement plan. We talked about the budget and the need for another Chromebook for next year's 3rd grade MCAS testing, and their use of paper over there. Paper, paper, paper. And how we could monitor it, maybe cut back on it, I don't know. But they do love paper. And we have another meeting next month. That will be the last one for the year.
The middle school has met once. We were reviewing the handbooks, just seeing little tweaks here and there, mostly grammatical or format things, nothing earth-shattering. They've gotten positive feedback on the start time, so they're feeling good about that, and also positive feedback on the IXL program that they had purchased. Grade level configurations for next year include 6 sections of 6th, 5 sections for 7th, 6 sections for 8th, and that was pretty much it.
Thank you. Policy?
High school, no.
We haven't met since last time.
Well, actually, we skipped PTO.
Oh, PTO?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did skip PTO.
Okay.
There's a lot of important
I know, there's a lot.
I
There
apologize.
was a lot of good stuff
Good
going
stuff
on
on
because we had the
PTO.
Parents' Night Out, which was successful and fun.
It was fun.
It was so fun. Every table was laughing.
The trivia
and had a
night?
good
Oh,
time.
it was so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I wish I
The 3
could
of
have
us,
gone.
we were the at the table.
It didn't raise as much as other Parents' Night Out, but we thought the fun factor just
It just
made it
yeah.
so much better.
So successful.
Yeah.
Super rough numbers because we haven't had a meeting our meeting was like the day after or the 2 days after
Yeah.
that. So around 4,500 is what they raised, so not bad.
Good night.
Lots and lots of positive reviews. And we had added 2 more members, so we beat the record. We're at 282.
Yay.
So we're
Added 2
Great.
headed to
members.
300 is really our ultimate, but we beat the all-time
That's
high,
great.
so that's very exciting.
Congratulations.
All right, the next meeting will be Monday, May 8th in the project room here.
Wonderful.
This room.
When are elections? Are they the 8th?
That is a very good question. They are in the May. Yes, we are
Okay,
at the
so-
May.
That would be Monday, May.
Yes,
Yeah.
that will be all
Officially.
happening on that day, yes.
Not that I expect there's change.
Okay. I think capital planning's done. correct?
Yes, we are
Yes,
done.
policy subcommittee.
And policies, we did, okay, we didn't have.
We have not had
No.
anything since our...
And capital
last-
planning is
Right.
done.
Wellness? Nope.
Nope.
Paxal?
Nope.
Reuse had a meeting last Thursday, which I was unable to attend. They are developing a presentation for presentation at town meeting.
Oh, good.
I think they're wrapping up their work. And
This is
their
it,
final-
yeah, I think that they're
That's
planning on
they're
doing,
gonna do it
done.
Okay.
They're planning on being done.
Good.
Okay, start time.
We did have a meeting.
We did.
We did, right? Just the
Mhm,
three.
we
It
did.
was just the three of us. It was very brief.
And we developed 3 surveys,
Yes.
all very similar.
Very similar
And the questions asked.
questions.
And Mr. Spadafino this week will be sending those out.
Okay.
I put that in my
Okay.
superintendent's
Yep.
update to look for them. But those surveys are going to the high school students, the high school parents and guardians, and the high school faculty and staff
Right.
to respond to. We did not do the middle school because the middle school really didn't have a change in their
No, that was
start
probably why
time.
it's very positive.
Yes. So it's nice to hear
You're
the
feeling good
feedback
about
was
that.
positive.
Because it's the same time as last year and the year before.
Lifelong learning?
We met last night, a very successful meeting that I think will bring this advisory committee much closer to its presentation next month. So May 24th,
Thank you.
that committee will
Fabulous.
bring, come back with the information that is gathered and hoping that it is
Great.
delivered its charge. But the bottom line, just very, very quickly, is that it takes a lot to get a good, strong adult ed program going, and there has been an offer from Fitchburg State, tentative but somewhat concrete, to partner with us, to be able to give us a lot.
That would be
Marvelous.
So
so
I think just the thing for us to temper and keep in mind, because I think when we started this, in working with this committee, I thought it would be kind of like a camp program or something where we'd offer and that there could be some nominal profit initially. And I think what I've learned is that I think it's going to take us some time before we see any profit. Could we begin to grow an amazing program? Yes, but I don't think it's something that as a committee we can be thinking about any profits
revenue
at least
center.
in this next year, yes.
Right.
But I think having strong mentorship so that we know we're delivering our community what it needs is great. And learning the tools we're going to need to eventually grow this to a place where it will be. Because it will be. It's just going to take a little longer, I think, than I thought it would.
And I think that that's a very wise way to approach it, because I think one of the things that we want to keep in mind was that the reason that we started this was that we had said to the community that this wasn't just going to be a school building, it was going to be something for the community. And I think it's important that that be the...
And Alpha are the experts in this. We also, which are the adult learners in the Fitchburg area. Fitchburg State has a very successful, more than decade-long adult learning program. We've spoken with many other communities. They all told us some, 3 concrete pieces of information, but one of them was that you needed some dedicated money and manpower to get these programs going, and that profit didn't happen for many years. Now they're growing and thriving, but I know the town of Northborough told me it took them 4 years before they came into some profit. So just that, but I think that we're going to be going in a great direction, and I can't wait to see what we have together when they come and present May 20th. They're going to be at our meeting May 24th.
That's
So
great, thank you.
That's exciting.
It is, you know what, it really, really is, and I think we're headed in a great direction.
I mean, this is
Well
something
done.
that the school committee literally has been talking about for years. And again, to see something that's finally coming to fruition, to me, is very personally
And with
gratifying.
strong mentorship, so,
Yeah.
and excitement from their side as well as ours. So.
Thank you. Strategic visioning.
I think I may have reported earlier.
Okay, we got all the
did,
info.
yep.
All right, good. Any topics for future discussion? Therefore, I'd like to take a motion to go into executive session to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining, and now to return to public session in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3.
We'll take a roll call.
Roll.
Making the motion.
Ms. Weiss?
I need a motion first.
So moved.
Okay, roll call?
Ms. Weiss?
Yes?
Ms. Ailes?
Here.
Ms. Bertrand?
Here.
Ms. Soroka?
Yes?
And Mr. Mackey?
Yep,
Who seconded the motion?
thank you.